Tonight on the Your Life Matters Show podcast.
Leaving an unhealthy relationship is very, very, very rarely as simple as just recognizing that it's an unhealthy relationship or that something's wrong. Just because I identify that there's problems in the relationship doesn't mean I stop loving the other person, or think back to better times, etc. So I think that's why it's so hard.
Is it just, that they think they're a failure?
Sometimes
If they walk away? Yeah.
Sometimes that's it, where people will feel like, well, I've invested so much time, I can't walk away now.
Behind every struggle, there's a story, and every story deserves to be heard. This is the Your Life Matters Show podcast. Your hosts are Steve Hodgson and licensed psychotherapist Dr. Eric L. Davis.
Hi, everybody. Listen, before we begin, we want to ask you if you would do us one favor, a big favor.
Yeah, please just hit the subscribe button and drop a like on the video. That really helps us a lot with the algorithm, and it helps us meet our mission of getting our videos in front of as many people as possible to try and help.
It's strange because less than 20% of our viewers are subscribers. So if you're listening right now, before we get into the episode, just reach over, hit that subscribe button. It doesn't cost you anything. You can hit the like button. You can even leave us a comment. We'd like to know where you're from, what you like, or maybe what kind of show you'd like to see. It's all you need to do, and you'll help us get the message out to more people.
And pretty please from me.
Should I stay or should I go? How do you know when it's time to leave a relationship? Most of us grow up believing there's someone out there. Someone we'll meet, fall in love with, and spend the rest of our lives beside. We dream about the proposal, the wedding, the home, the future we've imagined for years. But what happens when the person you believed was the one is not the one? Ending a relationship is never easy. Ending an engagement can feel like losing the future you already started living in your mind. Ending a marriage after so many years and children can feel devastating. Questions begin to race through your thoughts. Did I make the right decision? Will I ever find someone else? What if I never love like this again? What if I just threw away my chance at happiness? Heartbreak has a way of changing us. Sometimes it leaves us guarded. Sometimes it leaves us questioning our worth. And sometimes it becomes the beginning of discovering who we really are. Because healing isn't just about finding someone new. It's about understanding ourselves, recognizing unhealthy patterns, learning what we truly need, and finding the courage to choose relationships built on trust, respect, emotional safety, and genuine connection. On tonight's episode, Steve Hodgson and psychotherapist Dr. Eric L. Davis discuss this exact scenario. When should you call it quits, and what will it be like to start over? Whether you're single, dating, engaged, married, or simply wondering if the relationship you're in is helping you become the person you want to be, this conversation offers hope, insight, and practical wisdom. Because sometimes the hardest decision you'll ever make becomes the one that changes your life forever. Here are your hosts.
Howdy, and welcome back to the Your Life Matters Show podcast. If this is your first time here, greetings, and we truly hope you enjoy our podcast. See, I'm your host, Steve Hodgson, and I'm alongside my co-host here, the man who spent years trying to convince me that overthinking is not an Olympic sport, licensed psychotherapist Dr. Eric L. Davis. Dr. Davis, I think we have a really good show tonight.
I do too.
It really is starting to hit people at home and relationship-wise. I wanted to take a break from some of the some of the pedophilic stuff we've been doing.
Yeah.
And, just go a little, not a lighter topic, but a different direction, for an episode or two here. So this one should work. So, we do this podcast each week hoping we can at least help one person per episode. And I think we've said that every episode. Well, what happens when you realize that you yourself could use some of that assistance and you really don't know what to do? Now, this is why there's waypost counseling. So whether you're at home, in the office, help is available and waiting. So if you're having this kind of conversation, give this a quick listen.
You got awfully quiet.
That's amazing. I guess I never thought someone on a podcast would describe exactly how I've been feeling.
You don't have to keep carrying this by yourself.
I know that it's true, but I just don't want people thinking I'm weak.
Asking for help doesn't make you weak. It takes courage.
I wouldn't even know where to start.
Start right here at home. Waypost Counseling offers secure online counseling. No waiting room, no long drive. Just someone who's ready to listen.
Every day, someone decides to stop pretending they're okay. At Waypost Counseling, licensed therapists help people facing anxiety, depression, trauma, grief, relationship challenges, addiction, gambling disorder, and many of life's most difficult transitions. Through secure online appointments, compassionate care is available from wherever you feel most comfortable, even your own home. If today's episode felt familiar, maybe it wasn't just something to watch. Maybe it was the sign you've been waiting for. But remember, you have to make the first call.
Darling, you got to let me know. Should I stay or should I go?
If you've ever found yourself asking, should I stay or should I leave? It's one of the most difficult questions anyone can face. Whether you're dating, you're engaged, been married for years, there may come a time when you wonder if the relationship you're in is truly the one you're meant to be in. Walking away from a relationship is heartbreaking. Staying in the wrong one can be painful. So today we're talking about relationships. Okay, should I stay or should I go? And we'll talk about relationship strategies and everything that's involved with a relationship.
Relationships are one of the biggest influences on our mental and emotional well-being. A healthy relationship can provide security, support, and resilience. An unhealthy relationship can contribute to anxiety, depression, chronic stress, and even a loss of identity. The difficult part is that emotion often makes it hard to see our situation clearly. Fear, hope, guilt, obligation, and love can all become entwined together, making important decisions feel almost impossible.
Well, that was a mouthful, wasn't it? Okay.
Yeah.
So today's conversation is about telling people whether they should stay or leave. That's a choice you're going to have to make. It's about learning how to gain clarity, recognize unhealthy patterns, and make decisions that align with your values and your emotional well-being. So let's get into it. Dr. Davis, I think this is a question a lot of people may be asking. We see friends or maybe even ourselves stay in relationships that clearly are unhealthy. Why is it often difficult for those people to walk away?
Well, because leaving an unhealthy relationship is very, very, very rarely as simple as just recognizing that it's an unhealthy relationship or that something's wrong. Just because I identify that there's problems in the relationship doesn't mean I stop loving the other person, or think back to better times, etc. So I think that's why it's so hard.
Is it just, that they think they're a failure?
Sometimes
if they walk away, yeah.
Sometimes that's it, where people will feel like, well, I've invested so much time, I can't walk away now, when in reality they may be, putting themselves in a really unhealthy situation simply because they don't want to, because they feel like they've already invested so much time.
Yeah, but they should really think about working on their relationship before. I always think of Dr. Phil, before you make that decision to move on, try this first.
Yeah.
relationship counseling, and then walk away.
Mhm.
At least you close every avenue. You don't leave an open book. People often say love is blind. Okay. Is unless you hit them with your cane. Okay. Is there actually some truth to that, or is from a psychological standpoint? I mean, is that true? Can our emotions keep us from seeing warning signs that may seem obvious to everybody else?
So the answer is there is some psychological truth to it, to that expression. When we're emotionally attached to somebody, we tend to focus on the qualities that support what we want to believe about that person, and what we want to believe about the relationship. So we may, minimize warning signs, reinterpret concern and behavior, to make it look like something different, or even make exceptions, that we wouldn't recommend to a friend.
But it's the sometimes when I hear people say love is blind, I really think of it's more same four-letter word beginning with an L, but isn't it more sometimes lust is blind?
Sure. Yeah, I mean that can be the case. And
Yeah,
I've always thought back to the saying, I love this, and I don't feel like it degrades love or anything, but it's like love is what remains, when lust
lust.
has run its course, kind of, or whatever. And I mean, I think there's some truth to that.
We
Um,
saw that with a friend of mine, and I won't use his name, but I don't talk with him anymore anyway. But he had was going with some Russian bride,
mhm.
some Russian girl and stuff, and they were getting married. And I was just like, too quick. Okay, it's only
Yeah,
been like 2 or 3 months, but oh no, no, okay, and it's more like it's lust,
yeah,
because 2 or 3 years down the line, gone in different directions, and
mhm,
guess got a citizenship, and that was it, at that
yeah.
point. So, but I still think it was lust more than love. So, here's something that I don't think anybody that's listening to this podcast, I don't even care if you're newlyweds, are going to disagree with this thing. Every couple argues. Okay. Every relationship has challenges. So, how does someone know the difference between normal struggles and unhealthy patterns that really need attention?
So the primary difference, it's not simply whether conflict occurs or not, it's how the couple handles it. So in a healthy relationship, both people, they can express their opinion while maintaining basic respect. You know, um, Both people can take responsibility, listen to each other, work toward change together. And even when an argument becomes emotional, neither person should have to fear retaliation. So if you are fearing for your safety, that's,
Right.
you
Yeah.
know, sign number one of this is probably not a healthy relationship.
Now, just this probably goes off slightly to another direction, but why the attacks on people? In other words, we verbally fight dirty sometimes, couples, we
Hmm.
we start to go into, areas that just, crossing lines. And sometimes I say that's the answer to that question too. If you're crossing a line, okay,
Yeah.
whether it be physical, verbal, emotional,
Hmm.
yeah, then there's, that's something that needs up. But why do we fight that way?
I'm not sure. I think
Yeah.
it becomes about control in the moment,
Hmm.
and basically trying, not thinking things through and saying, well, I'm just going to say whatever it takes to
Right.
end this once and for all. If that's if
Well,
I'm
I know this
talking,
is a good zinger. Yeah.
yeah,
That's
yeah, exactly.
gonna
I
take the
mean,
person off and yeah.
yeah, I mean, it's healthy relationships should never involve hurting the other person, whether
Right.
it be emotionally, mentally, physically, any of that.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people don't realize the words hurt
Oh,
just as much as
absolutely.
the physical actions do.
Sure.
Yep. And I'm not belittling physical actions. I'm just
Hmm.
saying they can
Yeah.
hurt just as bad. So we hear people talk about soulmates and finding the one. Okay. From your perspective as a therapist, do you believe there's only one perfect person for us, or is it a successful relationship, something that's built over time?
I think that really I don't think that there's just one perfect person for everybody in the world, you know. Um, I like that idea because it can be romantic, you know, but it can also create unrealistic expectations. So always remember that compatibility really matters, you know, including shared values, being attracted to each other, emotional safety, and similar goals. I mean, so there's something that comes up a lot in relationships, and I'll just share this is sometimes a person can be the one at a particular time,
Right.
you know, at a particular frame and, you know, during a certain time frame and things can change, you know. So I think that really it's a romantic idea. You know, I've said the same thing myself, you know. But yeah, but I don't think it's
Few
necessarily, you
times.
know, yeah, I don't think it's well, this is the one person for me and no one, you know, no, I disagree.
That's something sweet to say to 25th to 50th anniversary.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, but
Absolutely.
but in truthfulness, you're right. It's going to change what your desires and wants or needs changes as you
Yeah,
change as you age.
absolutely.
I can tell you my desires and stuff are much different than when I was in my 20s and 30s.
Mine too.
Yeah, I mean, really, it changes over time. Um, you know, so, I did a lot of research on this, okay? And, I truly believe people can begin transforming themselves without waiting for their partner to change.
Oh,
From
absolutely.
everything I've seen, do you see that in therapy as well?
Absolutely. You know, the hard part of relationships is we can't control anyone else's choices, you know, but our own.
Hmm.
So the one area that we can always make a visible change, you know, of some kind is in our own life. We can always make changes in our own life. Um, So yeah, there is no reason to wait around. If I always say, if my recovery, you know, whatever it is from, whether it's a health recovery, a substance use recovery, whatever, if my recovery is contingent on people other than me, you know, ultimately that's not a healthy recovery. I need to have a recovery program that is going to help me stick to my guns, whether everyone is on board or not.
But even in a relationship itself, too, you have to be okay in yourself
Oh,
before you can
absolutely.
be okay for someone else.
Yeah.
So, you have to be healthy, mind, body, and spirit before you can commit yourself to somebody else,
Yeah.
and that same relationship. So, when people are in that type of relationship and they're having problems, uh, what should we really pay attention to? I mean, is there something that our spouse is going to say that's going to make us pay attention? Um, you know, what do we listen for? I mean, is there probably what I'm saying is there warning signs that are leading up to it that people should be listening for?
So I think looking for patterns, you know,
Hmm.
in relationships, I always say, you know, a good rule of thumb is there's no such thing as a perfect relationship. You know, so obviously that is, you know, if every time I have a disagreement with somebody I'm in a relationship with, I end the relationship, then all that does is just, well, now I'll never be surrounded by anyone that has a differing opinion than me. You know,
Right.
that's not a healthy relationship. So, you know, it's really looking for patterns for my rule of thumb is always, does this relationship, you know, give me joy more often than not? If the answer is yes, then that's kind of, I mean, that's pretty simple. You know, it's like, okay, well, that's
Right.
probably, but I mean, it becomes painfully obvious. If I'm miserable more often than I am happy, that tells me that, you know, something may be really wrong in this relationship.
And that's probably a good time to seek counseling,
Oh,
at,
absolutely.
at that point,
Sure. Before things get worse or before,
right.
you know, things settle into a pattern that's going to be really difficult to change.
And like we've talked about with, mental disorders, people are probably afraid to go to see a couples therapist
Yeah.
type of thing because people see them walking in. Oh, see, I knew they were having problems,
Yeah.
type of thing. So again, and it's not just pushing our sponsor, but like way post counseling.
Mhm.
you can do that counseling from your home,
Yeah,
in your living room, okay? And, nobody knows other than you and the counselor that you're there,
correct.
and that it's something that you should really, really think about doing. Okay, well, we couldn't let an episode pass without that time. You know what time it is?
It's the lightning round. Education version.
Yes, it's the educational
That's right.
lightning round. I will ask Dr. Davis 8 quick questions, and they're easily answered by fact or myth. I know this is a good way to approach the end of the episode, so let's just go right at it. Okay, fact or myth? Number one, love at first sight.
Mostly myth,
Number two, opposites attract.
partly fact.
Number three, couples should never go to bed angry.
Myth,
Four, jealousy means someone loves you.
myth.
Five, good communication solves everything.
False. That's a myth.
Myth, okay. Six, soulmates exist.
It depends on what you mean by soulmate. So,
Right.
yes and no.
Okay. Seven, red flags should never be ignored.
Fact, with some context.
Okay. And number eight, can people truly change?
Yes, I see it all the time.
Okay. So let's go. We have a few quick questions to end out here. Okay. I imagine there are people watching today who have ended an engagement, gone through a divorce, and walked away from a long-term relationship. They may feel like they failed. What would you say to someone carrying that burden?
Like the end of a relationship can feel like failure, because we often measure success on whether something lasted or not. But longevity alone doesn't make a relationship successful or the right relationship. So sometimes ending a relationship is an act of honesty, courage, self-respect, and a lot of times that can be the right thing to do to make sure that you're addressing your own needs, values, etc. So I think it's possible to grieve a relationship while still recognizing that leaving was the right thing to do.
Right. And you invested X amount of time, whatever it be, months or years into something. You're
Yeah.
you're going to mourn that period of time because obviously there was something that at least attracted you to that person, and you're going to mourn that loss.
Yeah.
That thing, so don't think it's just but just walk away next. It's like, gee, I like that luggage, but too bad it ripped. Okay. The zipper ripped, so I need to buy another one, Yeah, you're
Yeah.
gonna have an attachment to that, but it's okay to move on if you
Mhm.
have to. And it's really about recognizing patterns. And like I said earlier, looking back at the warning signs, a
Yeah.
lot of us miss. So why do you think so many of us ignore those red flags when we're emotionally invested in someone?
Because emotional investment, it basically changes the way we interpret what we see. And that's the reason, like, I always think back to, like the movie He's Just Not That Into You, or things like that,
Hmm.
where, a lot of times we will read way into something simply because of what we want it to mean versus what it may actually mean. And it's just, that I think that everybody does that to some degree. That's not always a bad thing, but, you know, keep in mind that we need to pay attention to what we really are seeing and what's actually happening in the real world.
All right. Sometimes people stay just because they hope things will get better. Okay, and I can understand that. How can someone tell the difference between healthy hope and simply just putting off time, avoiding that difficult situation again?
Well, so the big difference would be that healthy hope is going to be supported by evidence. It involves honest communication, being accountable, consistent effort. Both people recognize the problem and actively participate in making the relationship better.
And being realistic
Yeah.
on that too, that the other person is actually trying to change,
Hmm.
or at least hearing what you have to say.
Yeah.
So as long as and here we go back to the statement that we make probably every episode too about communication.
Yeah.
Communication is so important. especially in a relationship. So if someone's watching today, maybe they're in their 40s, 50s, 60s, even older, and they've almost given up on finding a healthy relationship. Here's the
Mhm.
question: is it ever too late?
No, no, it's never too late because, healthy relationships aren't just reserved for a particular age or stage of life. You
Hmm.
know, maturity brings a great deal of self-awareness, um, having clearer boundaries as far as what we want and what truly matters. So no, it's never too late to have a good relationship or a healthy relationship.
Right. I mean, how many people, I lived, if you watch the show, I lived in 55 plus community for a while.
Yeah.
How many people were just found somebody, later on in life in their 70s, late
Hmm.
70s, early 80s, it's like,
Yeah.
wow, okay, it there's never close your eyes because it's still right in front of
Yeah.
you. So the last question I'm going to ask for this. Now, we've talked about anxiety, depression, trauma, addiction, grief, and so many other challenges on our show. Well, I could go on and on at that. After today's conversation, would you say that the quality of our closest relationships affects almost every area of our mental health?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I would say that because, our closest relationships can influence a number of things, such as whether we feel safe or not, our sense of self-worth, um, our levels of stress or overall emotional well-being. So, um, good, healthy relationships can help regulate stress, strengthen resilience, etc. Um, so we should be able to, we should be able to know if our relationship is a quality one or not simply by how it makes us feel more often than not.
Yeah.
That'd be my answer.
You know, you know deep down inside, I think, sum up this whole episode that we've done here so far. Deep down inside, you know whether it's right or not. You
Absolutely.
you may not want to admit it,
Mhm.
like again, we go back to the Clash song. Should I stay or should maybe I'll
Yeah.
even insert that if I can just that little clip without breaking
Don't get us
copyright
sued
laws.
over
Yeah,
licensing.
right. Over copyright laws. But you know, it's you know. You in your heart, you just know you may not just want to take that step, that next step. Sometimes you do because of the children,
Yeah.
but that might be an interesting point that I don't think we brought up here. Okay, a lot of people stay because of the children. That's not
Mhm.
really very healthy to the kids to
No,
see
if you
that
think
kind of
about it, I mean,
relationship.
basically you're just having if it's an unhealthy environment, like no child wants to see their parents fighting all the time.
Right. Yeah. And the fact is, but then that also becomes the norm
Yeah,
for them
absolutely.
for their relationships later on.
Hmm.
Look at how many people abuse or become alcoholic. That's what they think is supposed to be okay. And
Yeah,
you have to think about all of that. When you say that what's in the best interest of your kids where you're staying together, that might not be in the best interest of your children.
true.
You're arguing in front of them and stuff. So, Dr. Davis, over time here on this show, I'm really impressed.
Mhm. Me
We,
too.
we've interviewed a lot of remarkable guests too over the years, and they've helped with a lot of our stories.
Yeah. Almost everyone has experienced a difficult relationship decision at some point. I hope this evening's show helped people realize that they are not the only ones wrestling with that difficult decision about your relationships and whether or not it makes sense to continue or just cut your losses.
I know when we say each week, if you're struggling, there is no reason you have to struggle alone. Reach out for help. It's not a sign of weakness, but as always say, it's a sign of strength, a sign that you may want to take control of your life again and be happy and content.
Now, usually we do a long outro for the show. This episode stands for itself and no long wrap up is needed. Remember, if you need help, pick up the phone and dial or text 988 from anywhere in the US or Canada. The call is absolutely free and a professional is always standing by to help. And you can also call us at Waypost Counseling. We have a great staff of people waiting to assist you, even from your own home. Remember, you have to be the one that makes the first call.
I remember that they even have Erin, who
Uh-huh.
was there for a relationship counselor, who was
Yeah.
perfect. for all of this. So be sure to like, subscribe, and share this episode with others who may need to hear and learn more about the topic. As you probably heard from the very intro into this show, okay, only about a third of you hit that subscribe button. Okay, it takes a second, just to click subscribe and click the like, even leave us a comment. All that stuff is free.
Pretty please.
And again, we're not monetized, but it helps the channel and it helps our episode get in that algorithm and be seen by more people.
Absolutely. Please also don't forget that our website is at yourlifematterspodcast.com. You can go there for more information or even to order official merchandise or to request to become a guest on an upcoming episode. We have found many guests that way. So if you're interested in being a guest, let us know.
Yep, and like you saw there, you can get the mug.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm showing you, the official Your Life Matters Show mug that's sitting there, and we work with, we have T-shirts that we wear too and stuff too.
Yeah.
So, God bless you all, and remember that your life matters. We hope to see you again next week.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of the Your Life Matters Show podcast. If today's conversation resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share the episode so more people can be part of these important conversations around mental health. And remember, your life matters. We hope to see you again next week.